level up your AWS security knowledge. In this session, our trainer will dive deep into IAM policies, granting permissions, and how to secure your AWS environment like a pro. From understanding security policy categories to evaluating IAM permissions, our trainer will cover everything you need to know. You will learn how to leverage IAM for layered security, navigate AWS organizations, and many more. By the end of this session, you will have the tools to secure your cloud environment and manage permissions with ease. So let's get started and take your AWS security skills to the next level.
In this diagram, you can see we can categorize policies with respect to grant permission policies and set maximum permission policy. So under grant permission policies, we have IAM, identity-based policy, and resource-based policy. Under maximum permission policies, you can have IAM permission boundaries and SCP, service control policy. So we have already learned in detail about identity-based policy. We'll see some more details about resource-based policy, and we'll try to understand overview of what exactly is IAM permission boundary and SCP. Now, when we talk about identity-based policy, so we already learned that we have these components, right? User groups, users, and roles. So these three things comes under identity. So policies that are created for user group or user or roles, these policies are called identity-based policies. And we learned about two types of identity-based policy. One is AWS-managed, another is customer-managed. So AWS-managed can be further classified into service access policy and job function. And custom policies are basically helpful whenever you want to customize any kind of access. Okay. So there is a feature called as granular control. In case you want to implement that, definitely you can have a lot of custom policies. Now, when we talk about policy elements, so we discussed about three policy elements: effect, action, and resource. Apart from this, you can have two more policy elements called as principle and condition. So effect can have only two values, allow and deny. Action, all the API calls that may differ with services. Okay. For example, like S3 may have a different set of actions. Your EC2 may have a different set of actions. DynamoDB may have a different set of actions. So actions may differ service to service. So depending on your requirement, you can just add actions to apply the effect. Must allow certain action for that. And then we studied about resources. So whatever resources you are creating, you can just restrict or allow access for all the resources or some of the selected resources. So in any policy, these three policy elements are compulsory. Without these three policy elements, we cannot create any policy, effect, action, and resource. But we have some optional policy elements as well. So we have principle and conditions. These are the two optional policy elements. So in case you want to customize or in case you want to basically provide access on certain condition, you can go with customized conditional based policies. Okay. So for example, let us suppose you want to allow or deny access for a particular IP address. Okay. Let us assume that user is coming from a particular address and you want to allow or deny access to that only on the particular IP. So you can write condition. Let us assume that you want to allow user to work only on one region, okay, or a particular region. So that can be another condition. So we have a lot of examples for this. So AWS IAM policy examples, okay, that you can get from here. And if you are aware of these terminology that we have already used, so it is very easy to understand what is specifically written. Let us take any random example from here. Denies access to AWS based on the requested region. Okay, so let us try to understand this. So this is the policy. Okay, I want some output from your side. Let us see what you can understand from this policy. So effect is deny. Yes, effect is deny for what? For this action. Okay, sorry, apart from this action, if action is CloudFront, IAM, Route 53 and support, it will be allowed. Okay, these are the actions that are basically not coming under the deny rule. Okay, and for which condition? So you have certain keywords that you need to learn. That string not equal to, if request is coming from requested region like EU Central, West 1, West 2, West 3. So this is how you can just introduce conditional statement under one policy. Okay, so likewise we have some more policy examples. So you can create some more complicated policies as per your requirement. Okay, allowing or disabling a particular AWS region. Okay, so you can see action account. Okay, so you have to take action on the complete account, enable region, disable region, based on the condition. If target region is AP East 1, okay, so on this region only, the actions will be allowed or denied. Okay, so if a user will have this particular policy attached through IAM user or any role, so a user can only enable or disable the region of AP South, AP East 1. Okay, other regions they will not have any kind of control for that. Okay, so this is what conditions can do. Okay, condition will give you the idea or give you the control to evaluate based on specific condition. Now, what is the principle? So principle can be account, user, role, or federated user. Okay, means any entity that can perform action on AWS account or AWS platform is called as principal. Okay, so suppose you want to provide access or deny access for a specific account, for a specific PAN user or role or federated user, you can make use of this particular. So principal is basically the compulsory section when we talk about your resource-based policy. Okay, so if we take the example, we see how principles are written. We already created identity-based policies, so I don't think it is difficult to understand. You know what is effect, what are the actions. So on EC2, start instance, stop instance will be the actions. For a particular resource, you can target, and only owner can do this particular thing. Okay, so string equal to resource owner, AWS is a name, so only owner can place this particular thing. Then how policies are evaluated. Okay, so explicit allow and explicit deny. So yesterday we already learned this particular thing, but let us try to understand more with respect to the picture. Okay, so for any policy, you can write effect as allow or deny. Now what will happen? So see, we already learned like only things written under allowed, whatever actions you are writing under allowed, they will be allowed only. If you're writing nothing, or if you're also not writing a particular action, it is by default deny. This is called as implicit deny. But there may be a situation you can imagine. If you remember our discussion on NACL, so we have already done that. Sorry, we have not learned about networking module. That is our next module. I have given some example regarding security group for firewall. So you can take that example as well. But let it be because NSCL is a much better example. No worries. Let us start to understand from here itself. So whatever you are not writing is by default denied. but there is something called as explicit deny. Okay, means suppose I want to enable all the actions of S3 except put item. Okay, so we can just combine it using deny action, that all the action will be allowed, but the only one action will be denied for a particular user. Okay, so this is what where you can use explicit deny. So your IAM policy will contain allow as well as deny for only one action. So this is the example of explicit deny. Okay, we can get examples here. Okay, I need to search for the example, but definitely there will be example. For example, AWS S3 bucket policy example, or bucket policy example. So we have a lot of examples for S3 again. So let's just check. Okay, let us try this one. So this is IP based kind of access. Okay, so you can write a deny statement as well. Okay, you can see effect deny. Okay, so effect is deny for every principal. For S3, all the actions will be denied for a specific bucket. Okay, if your request is coming from any other IP. Okay, but if your request is coming from this particular IP, you may access. Okay, so IP will be restricted. So everything coming from this particular IP will be restricted. Let us suppose this particular IP detected as a we can say attacker. Okay, so in that situation, you can restrict access to a specific IP. So if this particular IP is there, so everything will be denied by default. Okay. Apart from this, you can allow the traffic for other IPs. So this is one of the resource-based policy. This is the example of resource-based policy. We'll see one more example. Okay. So that is what explicit deny can help you. Okay. So if we try to understand the flow of your request, okay. So your identity-based policy will grant or deny. Let us say your one statement is allowing the particular traffic, and we just learned like a particular statement may be denying a traffic for selected, you can say, actions. So though you are providing allow access in one of the statement, but another statement may be denying access. So some of the selected actions will not work. Okay, so this is the advantage of explicit deny. Okay, so you can combine with two different policies. Now next is your resource-based policy, and best example to learn resource-based policy is your S3. Okay, so let us try the dashboard. Okay, so suppose this is the bucket that we might have created for our demo. Okay, now where to write the resource-based policy? So you can create resource-based policy in the permissions tab. If you scroll down, there is one section called as bucket policy. Now, right now, this particular bucket is not having any particular resource-based policy. Now, what is the meaning? So resource-based policy means you are trying to provide access or remove access for a particular resource. Okay? So here, if you want to add some customized policy, just click on add it. Okay, your policy editor will be enabled, and you can write resource-based policy. So for example, if you can see this policy, so this is the example of put object. Okay? So if you want to provide write access of your bucket to specific AWS account. Okay, so principal, you have to write AWS and the account ID. So this is the account ID. So you can just write account ID. So if request is coming from this particular account through any medium like CLI. Actually, it will work with CLI only. Because in GUI, your bucket will not be visible to another users, okay, or another AWS accounts. So we want to allow write operation only for this particular AWS account. So only one action is basically provided. And as this is a resource-based policy, your resource is very important. Okay. So resource-based policy principle is something that is compulsory part. Okay. If you're not writing principle in a resource-based policy, it will not work. Okay. And resource is provided with respect to ARN. The syntax is ARN, Amazon resource name. Okay. So we can use resource-based policy for wide variety of application. For example, this is one of the example for uploading the data, okay, providing write access. Now there is very common scenario, okay, there is very common scenario, like we already learned about S3, that whenever you are uploading any data in S3, by default, it will be private. By default, your bucket and objects will be private. Now, there is a situation, you may be using this particular bucket for a web application or front end, and you are uploading a lot of objects. And you want, like, as soon as you upload the object, it must become public, okay? So that you don't have to do it manually, or if now objects are very large in number. Let's say you have 500 objects. So it will be very difficult for you to provide access to objects manually. Okay. How many times you will provide make public? So it will be very difficult. So in this situation, you can make use of this policy editor. Okay. If you go to example, we have a lot of different policies. Let us say this one, granting read-only permission to a public anonymous user. Okay. So this is what is our policy. So let us try to, it's not our policy. Let me just search. I don't want to. Let us write our own policy here. Okay. So our policy will be, okay, so this is my S3 full access policy that yesterday we have already covered this part. Okay. Sorry. Now I want to customize this particular policy to provide access to any anonymous user. So first of all, what is missing? We just learned that a particular policy, if it is a resource-based policy, there is one particular part that is must. So here we don't have that principle. So first of all, we need to add principle here. So I'm just adding principle just below effect. So this is what I want. As we are providing access to every anonymous user, so we must write star there. Otherwise, only few of the things are supported. So for example, AWS IAM principle. So let us see what are the principles that you can write. You can write these kind of principle, either AWS account, root user and role permission, and user, federated user, services, or all principal in this specified by star. For example, if you want to provide only AWS users, so this can be the syntax. Okay. Principal AWS, then the account number of that AWS particular account. Then principal can be your roles. So AWS, you can provide the ID of the particular account and can write the rules for that. Okay. So in this way, you can use different types of keyword. Okay. AWS, federated, then star for every particular thing. So in our example, we can update our policy with star. Means I want everyone that they can just use my public bucket for front-end web application or something. So we learned about list bucket and get object. Okay. So your action should consist only these two action. Okay. So you must provide only two actions, that is list bucket so that our data can be listed, and the object can be read only. Okay. If we provide star, so that will be not a best practice and it is not recommended. Then as we are creating the resource based policy, so it is very, very important that we must provide the ARN of the specific resource. Okay. So in our case, what is our ARN? So my bucket ARN is already mentioned here. ARN stands for Amazon resource name. I can update this ARN like this one. Now there is one more update for ARN. Okay. So what is that? We need to create one list here actually. So we are providing access to the bucket. That's okay. But what about the content? Okay. If you have a lot of data, so we need to update our ARN one more time with one more syntax. Okay. Now what it will be? It will be like this one. /star. So all the objects that are present under our bucket, present inside our bucket, will also have the same effect. Okay. So that's it. I hope you got the idea about this simple policy. Okay. So I'm just updating policy here. So policy version, when this particular policy is issued by AWS, then statement. So you can see statement can we get this. Okay. Effect allow principal star action, only 2 actions right now, and on which bucket. Okay. So we are providing these actions only for one bucket. Okay. So this is how your policy will look like. So if we just save the changes, if everything is okay and our syntax is okay, now if you go back to the permissions, okay, or objects, okay, if you try to refresh, it must show public. I think it's taken some more time to make it public. Okay. So generally what happens, as soon as you change the policy, it will show public. Hence, in a red flag, it will show that the bucket is now becoming public. Okay. No worries. Let us try to test it. Maybe there is some update. Now they may not be showing that here itself. Okay. So before making your bucket public, there is one more condition, like before making this policy. So your bucket public access must be enabled. Okay. So block all public access must be off, otherwise it will not work. So we have already done that in the previous demo, previous example. So that is the part. I think I'm logged out. No problem. Let's log in again. That's why we may not have. Still, it is not visible. No worries. Let us try to test. Let's try to upload something. Okay. Now let us test if everything is okay. I must be able to see my data. So you can see in normal situation, we generally make object public using this particular option, but it is now by default public so that anyone can only read the data. So this particular thing can be very much feasible when you are working with large amount of data that you want to add for a particular web application or something. So this is what resource-based policies can help you with. The next part is basically what is the permission boundary. So permission boundary is not, we can say, a JSON document or JSON object that we generally create in policies. So whatever you are doing in grant permission policy, for example, identity-based policy, let us suppose I want to restrict some of the part of that identity-based policy for a particular user. So we can create the IAM permission boundaries for that user that will limit the permission. Okay, limit the permission in the sense just now we learned about deny action. So for example, a particular user may have read write every type of access for a service, let us say RDS, DynamoDB, whatever. Okay. And due to any reason, you want to restrict the access for certain API calls. Okay. For example, uh, you don't want to give the access to the user for Mumbai region, for Northern Virginia region. Okay. So the user can perform action everywhere apart from this kind of regions. Okay. So these things basically comes under IAM permission boundaries. Okay. So they are not uh, permissions actually. They are just filters that will check which kind of policy user is already having or which kind of permission user is having, and you can set the level of that particular permission boundary. This is what permission boundaries are actually. So that is the small overview about permission boundaries. Now next is something called as SCP, called as service control policy. So to understand service control policy, we first need to understand what is AWS organization. Okay. So there is one feature in AWS, or there is one service in AWS called as AWS organization that you can access in your account as well. Organization. Okay. Now, what is the purpose of this? So first of all, we need to understand what is the purpose of AWS organization. So AWS organization is a service that can help you to create, you can say, or to add multiple accounts in one account. Okay. For example, this one, you can see this is one of the organizational unit. Okay. So organizational unit is nothing but your account in which you are adding multiple AWS accounts. Now the question is why? What is the purpose? What is the advantage? What problem this particular thing may solve? So this arrangement can solve your two issues, two problems. Okay. Number one, billing. Okay. Now how? So we learned one thing like S3 pricing. If you can again go back to S3 pricing, AWS S3 pricing. This can be one of the good example to understand bulk billing. Okay. So there is one feature in AWS that is called as use more, pay less. Okay. Means you can get bulk billing discount. So if you're uploading data up to 50 TB, you can get 0.023 per GB per minute cost, per GB per minute bill, or accordingly. Now, if you are uploading data above 50 TB up to 450 TB, you can get a discount of $0.01. And if you're uploading data above 500 TB, you can get the discount of 0.021, means 0.02002. Now you will say, hey, what is the meaning? Is 0.002 will be very, very less. But check the size. 0.002 is per GB, but we are talking about terabytes. So 1024 GB is equal to 1 TB. So now you can just calculate it by multiplying it with 1000. It can make a huge difference whenever you are working with large amount of data. So in data engineering, we are basically working with very, very large amount of data a lot of times. I mean, so it is very much important to save cost. It is very much important to optimize the cost. Okay. Now suppose you have 3 different accounts for a lot of wide variety of reasons. You may have production environment running in one account. You may have a testing environment. You may have a development environment. One account you may be using for backup. One account you may be using for production. One account you may be using for another application. Okay. So separate accounts, separate bills will be generated. Okay. And if you're paying separate bills, so you cannot take the advantage of this bulk billing. Okay. Now suppose account 1 is storing 100 TB of data, account 2 storing 200 TB of data, account 3 storing 300 TB of data. Okay. Now, according to this lab, we will be charged according to this one 0.022. But if you combine the usage, it will come around 600. So now our slab is basically this one 0.021. So this is what exactly the meaning of bulk billing discount. Okay. Now, when you add your accounts in AWS organization under one organization unit, okay. Now, what is organization unit? So it is another account in which you have added some of the AWS account, and one organization unit account can be further added to another account. Okay. So you will have the consolidated bill on your organization unit account, so that you can get the advantage of bulk billing. So this is one advantage. Now, as we are studying this particular topic under security IAM, so definitely there will be advantage of security as well. So we have a type of policy called as SCP, Service Control Policy. Now, what is the advantage there? Okay. So see, for example, there is one same policy you want to use in all the accounts. Okay. So if you are using IAM, so you will be writing the same policy 4 times for this account, for this account, for this account, for this account. Means this will be a redundant work. So SCP provides one feature called as inheritance. So if you're writing service control policy in organization unit, you can inherit in your other AWS account. Okay. So SCP will act just like, again, a filter. Okay. So whenever a particular policy will be evaluated, okay, so for example, you are writing policy for this account. So SCP will work like or organization unit, what is written, what is allowed or not. So what is written in organization unit, it will be evaluated according to the intersection. For example, in organization SCP, EC2 is allowed. In identity-based policy, EC2 is allowed. So for the users, only EC2 will be, we can say, implicitly allowed. Okay. So this is what SCP can help you. So SCP allows only what is there in the interaction of IAM permission with SCP or in organization unit. And they are not basically for granting or denying permission. They just act as a filter. If we understand, or if we try to imagine the bigger picture, so try to think with this, or we try to understand this particular thing. So let us suppose a particular user is requesting some of the resource or requesting a particular data. So we know that identity-based policy is responsible for granting and denying the permission. We just learned about permission boundary. So this is one of the filters that you can check whether the user is allowed or not. And finally, if you're working in multi-account architecture using AWS organization, so you are just adding one more filter, that whether your organization unit or whether your admin of organization unit is permitting you to provide that solution or not. Action or not. So this is what you can use in SAP. If you go back to organization, okay, so we can very easily just add an organization account. Okay, so if you want more accounts to be added in this particular organization, you just click on add an AWS account. Either you can create it from here itself, or you can invite existing accounts. Okay, so for example, I want to invite another account, so you can just add account ID or root user ID. They will get the invitation. If they accept the invitation, you can see one more account below this one. Okay, then this way your organization will be created, and you can definitely create the policies and all. So this is what AWS organization can help you. Okay, so I hope you got some basic understanding of SCPs, how it can help to create your policies for multi-account setup. Okay? So that's it for the policy and policy type. So I just wanted to add one more point and whatever we discussed regarding policies. So sometimes policy creation, policy generation can be a bit complicated that you already learned. You may have to research a lot. You may have to search a lot in documentation about the syntaxes, about the allowed part, that actions, then resource writing. So a lot of time it may be very complicated. So AWS have one tool called as AWS policy generator. So you can make use of this particular policy, like for what you want to create. Some of the types are supported. For example, you can create S3 bucket policy, SQS policy, VPC endpoint, IAM, SNS policy. So it will help you to simplify the policy creation. For example, we have created policies using all the manual methods. Okay, so it may be difficult for anyone if you are working for the first time. So this is what you can use. Okay, what to write: allow, deny. For example, principal star. Then I want to allow only, let us say, get object, and let us say get object only. If you have ARN, you can just paste it here. For example, I have the ARN, so let us try. And that's it. You can just generate the policies. You can see just by adding the required syntaxes or required inputs and outputs, you can generate the syntax of complete policy. So this is how you can use it, policy generator. So for your reference, I'm just adding this link in the chat box. So it can help you to generate policy in much easier way.
Hey there, if you like this video and want to go deeper and become an expert in AWS data engineer, whether you're already working into data or new to data and would like to take your career to the next level, I would like to invite you for a free class that I'm doing where we'll talk everything about data and data engineering services on AWS Cloud, be it S3 Lakehouse, or it could be Athena, Glue, Kinesis, Firehose, databases, RDS, all type of data. And we're going to talk everything about data, including why you should be learning. And I'm going to give you my 3-step framework to go from a complete beginner to getting certified and getting a higher paid job on cloud or in data engineering on cloud. So if you're interested, go to this URL, k2academy.com/AWS Data 02, enter your name, email address, phone number, and click on register now. And I'll see you in the other side of this class.